We know 4G is we are utilizing 4G majorly in the country now for mobile communications and all that. What is the difference between 4G and 5G?
So 4G LTE means fourth generation long-term evolution, and it is within the radio frequencies that are pretty much, it's called, in radio frequencies you have the SHF, which is the super high frequency, and which is between 3 megahertz to 30 megahertz. And then you have the extremely high frequency from 30 to 300. So 4G is within the lower bands of the super high frequency. And 4G has maximum speeds of 100 megabytes per second to 1,000 megabytes per second. Now, I say that to put it in perspective so you understand the graduation of speeds of processing.
So the question is, what is 5G, isn't it?
So 5G is fifth generation mobile phone technology that is expected to support more complex internet operations like the Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, and quantum computing. 5G is actually in 3 bands. You have the low band, you have the mid band, and then you have obviously the millimeter waves, which is basically where there are issues.
Okay, so to break it down, there are some people who have broken it down to the point that if you're downloading a full movie about 1 hour 30 minutes with a 4G, which can take about 20 minutes, for 5G, it can take how long?
3 seconds.
Really?
Yes, because it gets as high as 20 gigabytes per second.
No, say that again. So if you download an hour, 30 minutes of movie in about 20 minutes, to download on 5G, say it again.
It's a few seconds, 3-point-something seconds, because it's 20 times faster than 4G.
20 times faster.
Yes.
So in essence, the spectrum that you have a problem, you are one of those who have a problem with 5G technology and the relationship with biology or the relationship with human health. What is the 5G frequency spectrum, and how does it relate with human health?
Well, I mean, with the lower bands, there's not so much of a problem. The issue is the millimeter wave at 60 gigahertz frequency. Now, there's something called atmospheric attenuation. What that means is when a wave is being dampened or absorbed by the atmosphere. And it is observed that on the SHF to EHF bands, there are certain spikes on that curve. The first spike, I don't have that slide, if not, would have, yes, that's the slide.
Okay, so the 60 gigahertz millimeter wave. And so it's, what is a 60 gigahertz millimeter wave? That slide, if we could put it on.
Yes, so basically, the 60 gigahertz millimeter wave is within the extremely high frequency spectrum. And what happens is it's almost 98% attenuated by oxygen.
What does that mean?
It means something in the atmosphere. You see, these waves, when we say radiation, many people might not know what it is, so they might not appreciate that even non-ionizing radiation has problems. But at 60 gigahertz, it means you have 60 gigahertz photon energy. Photon is the carrier of the electromagnetic force. So that's how electrons transfer energy between each other. Yes.
What does it affect humans?
Oh, absolutely. So this is how it is. If you are exposed to 60 gigahertz millimeter wave radiation, which is being attenuated by oxygen in the atmosphere, everything that has to do with oxygen in your blood, oxygen in your atmosphere, what happens is the electrons, which form a covalent bond that make oxygen diatomic, even if the activation energy required to break the bond, that happens on the ionizing radiation. It breaks bonds. But on non-ionizing radiation, it has enough energy to change the spin of the electron, which basically destabilizes its ability to function in simple terms as we can use it.
So in simple terms, the water in our body is being affected, which makes us breathe and live as a human being.
So water is different from, this is directly oxygen.
Oxygen, okay.
This is directly oxygen. So the iron component in your blood, hemoglobin, is what's responsible for transporting oxygen, if you remember our elementary biology.
Absolutely.
So the hemoglobin is going to struggle to lock onto the oxygen atoms because its orientation has changed. This is subatomic particles. It's not a very popular and it's interesting to me, but it's not a very generally interesting part of physics.
So basically, for animals and humans, the 5G spectrum or the electromagnetic waves formed in 5G affects humans.
It will affect everything, not just humans. It affects animals. I mean, anything that's a vertebrate that uses oxygen, exposed to millimeter waves for extended periods. Ionizing radiation impact is immediate. Non-ionizing radiation, it's like death in doses. So the effect is gradual, and then you get to a point where your cells can no longer sustain that boiling microwave type environment.
Okay, so Tony, you're fantastically speaking above some of us who are not scientifically inclined. But in essence, you're saying it is dangerous for human beings. We'll take a break now. But when we come back, we'll hear from authorities who are in charge of these policies. When we say these policies, the NCC, that will give us an understanding of what it means for Nigerians and the coronavirus, the relationship. Is there any relationship? We hear from them when we come back from this break. Join us again. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us. Tony Nwakalo is an environmental biologist. He's been speaking to us on 5G network and the correlation to human beings, to human health, and perhaps whether or not it is dangerous. Tony, thank you so much for talking to us. In essence, what you're saying is that Nigeria should be wary of 5G. You heard an expert there who said we should not be afraid.
Well, I don't know what study. I mean, I listened to some of those comments, and they keep making references to studies that have been carried out. But if you're not really following, I mean, if you're not really interested in virology or biology, some of those journals you won't read. So I have documentation on all of the tests that have been done on EHF, the EHF band, by the International Journal for Environmental Research. And I'm aware that no in vivo tests have been